Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Yud Aleph? Yeah. Daf Kuf Yud Aleph of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, as I said yesterday, today is a headache daf. It gives you a big headache. Let's get started. We're on Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis, 3 lines before it gets wide. Ketana v'chereshes v'chulei. What the heck is that even talking about? I think my brain is basically done. I think my brain is like, all right, I had enough. Go do computer programming or something. Anyways, what the heck is that even talking about? Ketana v'chereshes? I don't even know what it's talking about. Wait, what's this talking about? My brain is like mush. Right, so if you have a guy and he's married to... Dude, what? Mishai nosa l'shtei yisomos ketanas v'meis. Okay. Men poteres tzarasa. V'chin shtei choshes. Ketana v'chereshes and bia achas men poteres tzarasa. Nachon. Wow. Yeah, my brain is like mashed potatoes. So if you have Reuven is married to Sarah and Rivka. Now, Sarah is a ketana, and Rivka is a chereshes. So now, if Reuven dies, so then Shimon, of course, is like a Yibum situation. Now, we don't really know what to do, because we don't really know, was Reuven, did he like vibe more with Sarah, the Ketana, or with Rivka, the Chereshes, and who do you do Yibum with? Okay, fine. So, says the Gemara, Amr of Nachman, Ashkechose, the Rav Ada bar Ahava, the Rav Chana Chasane, the Asma v'kamakava akvasa b'shuga de pumbedisa. So it says Rav Nachman that he saw Rav Ada bar Ahava and his son Chana, his son-in-law Rav Chana, that they were gathering a crowd in the marketplace of Pumbedisa. They were going to give a shir. Alright. Ve'amri, and they said, Hoditnan ketana v'chereshes and biasachas me'en poteres tzarasa, that when it says in our Mishnah that if Reuven is married to Sarah and Rivka, Sarah is a ketana, Rivka is a chereshes, and now Reuven dies, and we don't know, right? And bias achas man poteres tzarasa, that if Shimon does yibum with one of them, it's not going to enable the other to live her best life. Hane mile denaflo lemi achiv pikeach. That is, if Reuven was a pikeach, deloy adinon ibiktana nichalei ibichereshes nichalei. We don't know, did Reuven vibe better with Sarah the ketana or with Rivka the chereshes? Ibiktana nichalei de asya lichlaldea. Maybe Reuven vibed better with Sarah the ketana, because at least in the future she will become gedola, meaning her only sort of flaw, if we can call it that, is that she's too young. But in the future she'll get older, she'll become an adult, and then he'll be able to vibe with her then. So maybe he vibes with her better now. Or maybe Reuven vibes better with Rivka the chereshes, because even though she is deaf and mute, she's an adult. They can have bia, and maybe he vibes better with her. Aval nafla so it's not. We're not sure. Does he vibe better with Sarah or with Rivka? Aval nafla me'achiv cheresh. But if Reuven was a cheresh himself, so then vada b'chereshes nichalei. So then certainly we can assume that he vibed better with Rivka the chereshes, the vas biahi, because she's an adult. They can have bia, uvas minehi, and they're similar. They're both chereshim. Okay, fine. V'aminilu ana, and Rav Nachman says that I told them, afilu naflalei me'achiv cheresh nami misapkalei. And I, Rav Nachman, said to them that look, even if Reuven was a cheresh, still we'd be uncertain if he vibes better with Sarah or with Rivka. Ketzat takanosun. So then what do you do? Right? We just said that if Reuven was married to Sarah and Rivka, and Sarah is a ketana, Rivka is a chereshes, we don't know who he vibes better with, and therefore, if Shimon does yibum with one of them, it's not going to enable the other one to live their best life. So to go and live their best life. So then what? So what do we do? Omer Rav Chizde. So it says Rav Chizde Omer Rav, in the name of Rav, Kones hachereshes umotzia beget viktana tamten achetagdo v'tachlotz. Friends, do you hear that? Says Rav Chizda in the name of Rab, that what you do in this scenario, where Ruvain was married to Sarah and Rivka, Sarah is a Ketana, Rivka is a Chereshes, right? So what you do in this case is that, now of course, both of them are only married midrabanan, right? This we're talking about is Ketana, who's Yisoma, she's only married midrabanan, and Chereshes is also married midrabanan. So what do you do in this case? So we said that with the Chereshes, he can, when I say Chereshes, where am I? So he can do Yibum with the Chereshes, and then, because he can't do Chalitza with the Chereshes, that's not an option, because the Chereshes doesn't do Chalitza, he can do Yibum with the Chereshes, Umotzia beget, and then he gives her a get, and then she can go and live her best life. Viktana, and what does he do about the Ketana? Tamtanat Shitagdu, wait until she gets older. Vitachlots, and then, once she's an adult, she does Chalitza, and like that, they can both go and live their best lives. Amr of Chizda Shmamina Ksava Rav, and says of Chizda, that we learn from here that Rav holds, Chereshes Knuya Mushuyeres, Ketana Knuya Ve'ina Knuya. That sort of the status of the marriage to the Chereshes is different than that of the status of the marriage to the Ketana, right? Ruvain's marriage to Sarah was substantively different than Ruvain's marriage to Rivka, who was a Chereshes. That a Chereshes is sort of quasi-married, right? Knuya Mishuyeres. She's married, but there's still something missing in that marriage. She's not completely married. Whereas the Ketana, we're actually besuffic. We're not exactly sure. It's possible that Ruvain's entirely married to her. It's possible he's not married to her at all. So whereas by the Chereshes, by Rivka, Ruvain is definitely quasi-married to her. Whereas by Sarah, the Ketana, it's possible that Ruvain is entirely married to her. It's possible he's not married to her at all. We're not sure. Okay, and that's what's called Knuya Mishuyeres, quasi-married. And Knuya Ve'ena Knuya means we're not sure. Either she's Knuya, either she's entirely married, or she's Ena Knuya, or she's entirely not married. Okay, fine. Shmamina Ksavarav Chereshes Knuya Mishuyeres, Ketana Knuya Ve'ena Knuya. Fine. So now, let's explain that. And therefore, so what did we say? So we said that Shimon can do Yibum with Rivka. And we said that Rivka is definitely quasi-married. And then, so when he does Yibum with Rivka, okay, so it's a quasi-Yibum, so he's quasi-married, and then he divorces her, and she can go and live her best life. And then, when it comes to, then when it comes to Sarah, so we wait until she gets older, and then you do Chalitza. Now, Sarah is either married or not married. So if Ruvain was not married to Sarah, so then there's really no point of the Chalitza. Now, if he was married to Sarah, well then, her Vadai marriage is stronger than Rivka's quasi-marriage, which means that he's still going to, that the Yibum that he did with Rivka, who's a Chereshes, didn't make Sarah Ptura from Yibum, since, if she was married to Ruvain, well then her full marriage, potentially, right, we don't know. She was either completely married or not married at all. If she was completely married, well then she was completely married to Ruvain, whereas Rivka was only quasi-married to Ruvain, and therefore Shimon's Yibum with Rivka is only a quasi-Yibum, right, a quasi-Zika, which is not going to poter her Tzara Sarah, and therefore he's going to have to do Chalitza with her when she's older. So I understand that if we say that Rivka is quasi-married, and Sarah is either completely married or not married at all. That's why he first does Yibum with Rivka, divorces her, and then waits till Sarah gets older, and then does Chalitza with her. Because if it enters your mind to say that it's the opposite, that Rivka, who's a chereshes, is either entirely married or not married at all, and Sarah is quasi-married, well then, amai kones umotzia beget, teisiv gabe mimon avshach. Well then, if that's the case, well then why does he have to marry Rivka and then divorce her? He can just stay with Rivka, right? Why not, right? If we say that Rivka is either married or not married, and it's Sarah who's in this quasi state, well then, let Shimon do Yibum with Rivka. If she's not married at all, right? If the marriage to Rivka is, right, Reuven wasn't married to her at all, and then therefore, so then he's now marrying her now just as a nachris, like not as Yibum, because she wasn't married to Reuven. And then when Sarah gets, and then they could stay together. Why not? Kilu, it's not Yibum or anything like that. It's just, he's just living with her. And then Sarah, who's a Ketana, when she gets older, she does Chalitza, fine. Now, and if Rivka was entirely married to Reuven, well then when Shimon does Yibum with Rivka, so now he's done Yibum, right? If Rivka was entirely married to Reuven, so now Shimon is doing Yibum with Rivka, and if we're saying that Sarah is only quasi-married to Reuven, so then when Shimon does Yibum with Rivka, who is entirely married to Reuven, that releases Sarah's Zika, because she was only quasi-married to him, and therefore when she gets older and they do Chalitza, it's not really relevant anyways, because she was already Potter, it's just for just in case, but she's already Potter from the Yibum that Shimon did with Rivka. So therefore the Gemara asks, if it's the other way around, if Rivka is the Safek, either married or not, but Sarah is this quasi-marriage, well then Rivka should be able to stay with Shimon. Why does he have to divorce her? Right? Iknuya, top line of Kufiyat Aleph Mud Aleph, right? It's the top line of today's daf. We're already almost 13 minutes in. So Iknuya, so if Rivka, if we're saying that Rivka is either married or not, and it's Sarah who's quasi-married, well then if Rivka was married to Reuven, so now Shimon did Yibum with her, and she's married to Shimon. And if she was not married to Reuven, well then ha-nachris ba'alma, then she's just a nachris ba'alma, and let her stay with Shimon. And then either way, when Sarah gets older, you'll do Chalitza with Sarah. And if Reuven was married to Rivka, so then the Chalitza is just, irrelevant. And if he was not married to Rivka, then he's doing Chalitza with Sarah. Fine. So therefore, from the fact that we say that Shimon needs to do Yibum with Rivka and then divorce her, it must mean that Davke Rivka is the quasi-marriage, the Chereshes is the quasi-marriage, and the Ketana is either married or not married. Okay, fine. So now, V'chi Tema, and if you're going to say, okay, so then based on this setup that we're saying that the Chereshes is the one who's quasi-married, and the Ketana is either married or not married, so we said that he first does Yibum with Rivka, then divorces Rivka, and then he waits until Sarah's older, and then does Chalitza. But one second, V'chitema Ketana amai tamtin at shetagda v'tachlo it's teisiv gabe. Why don't you just say that Sarah, why does she have to wait until she gets older and do Chalitza? Why doesn't Shimon just immediately do Yibum with her? If she was married to Reuven, so now he's doing Yibum with her. Shimon's doing Yibum with her. Ilav knuyahi nuchrisa ba'alma he. And if she was not married to Reuven, so then, she's not, it's not Yibum. It's just a random woman. Same kin cheresh is bimatepo. But if that's the case, then Rivka is basically trapped. Because, right, if Reuven was married to Sarah, definitely married to Sarah, so then, in that event, Shimon then would have done Yibum with Sarah, in which case he would be unable to, right, he can't do Chalitza with Rivka because she's a Chereshes, and he wouldn't be able to do Yibum with her because he already did Yibum with Sarah, and you can't do it, you don't do Yibum twice from the same household. So therefore, Rivka would be stuck in that case, and therefore Shimon can't just immediately marry Sarah the Ketana. Amr Rav Sheishes Hachinami Mistavro Kedikamitayitz Rav Chizda Aliba de Rav. And Rav Sheishes says that the way that Rav Chizda explained Rav, that by the Chereshes it's quasi-marriage, and by the Ketana it's either all or none. So that taka makes sense. The Tanya, because we learn in a Brisa, Shnei Achin Nesuin Shtei Achayis, that if you have two brothers, Ruvain and Shimon, who are married to two sisters, Sarah and Rivka, Yevamos, and they are orphans. Ketana v'chereshes, Sarah is a ketana, and Rivka is a chereshes. Okay, fine. So they're both married midrabanan. Meizbaila shel ketana. So if Ruvain dies, who's married to Sarah, so now Shimon. So now you have Shimon, who's married to Rivka. Rivka is a chereshes. And now you have Sarah. So now Shimon is quasi-married to Rivka, the Chereshes, and Sarah is all or none. Was either married to Ruvain, in which case Shimon has if Sarah was married to Ruvain, so then Shimon has a zika with Sarah, which is stronger than his quasi-marriage to Rivka, or she wasn't married at all to Ruvain. So in which case there's no zika at all. So Chereshes Yotze beget. So we say that Shimon gives a get to Sarah, to Rivka. Okay, fine. So now they're no longer married. Viktana tamtinat shetagdil, and then the Ktana waits until she gets older. V'tachlots, and does chalitza, right? Because just in case there was a zika there, the zika, right? If Sarah was really married to Ruvain, so then Shimon would have a vadai zika with Sarah, which is stronger than his quasi-marriage to Rivka. So therefore he divorces Rivka, and he then does chalitza with Sarah when she gets older. If Shimon's the one who dies, and then it is Rivka with the quasi marriage, so now what do you do? Because Sarah and Rivka are sisters. Now, in the event that Sarah is married to Ruvain, so then so then if Sarah is married to Ruvain, so then Memele Rivka is Achos Isha, right? And there's no Yibum. But if Ruvain is not married to Sarah, well then Ruvain needs to do Yibum with Rivka. So Ketana Yotza beget. So what he does is he divorces Sarah. V'chereshes asur la'olam. But the chereshes, he can't do anything, right? Because now, in the event that Ruvain was married to Sarah, so now she's now the sister of a divorcee, right? Achos Grushaso, and therefore he cannot marry her. And he also, of course, can't give her a get either. He can't do chalitza with her either, because she's a chereshes. And if nonetheless he did yibum with Rivka after he divorced Sarah, so then no sin la get vihutra. Well, then he just gives her a get, and then she can go live her best life. So again, if Shimon dies, so now Ruvain gives a divorce to Sarah, right? Because just in case they are married, because just in case Ruvain and Sarah are not married, well then there's the zika coming from Rivka now, so he can't stay with Sarah, so he gives Sarah a divorce just in case, right? And then now, so we said that in the event, so he's not allowed to marry Rivka, right? Because just in case he was married to Sarah, so then she would be Achos Isha. Now, but if he slept with her anyways, then all he does is he gives her a get, and she can go live her best life. Because if Reuven was mamish married to Sarah, so then that would mean that Rivka is asuratim because Achos Isha, and therefore Memela she can go and live her best life. And if Reuven was not married to Sarah, so then he just did yibum with Rivka. He then divorced her, and she can go live her best life. So Bishlama Chereshes Knuya Mishuyer. So I understand if we say that Rivka is quasi married, Kitana Knuya ve'ena Knuya, and Sarah the Kitana is either married or not married. Mishumachi d'chibal Chereshes. That is why if Reuven did yibum with Rivka after he divorced Sarah, even though he's not allowed to, nonetheless, no saying la get. So he gives her a get, v'hutra, and she can go live her best life. De Omar, because you say miman afshach. Either way you look at it. Iktana knuyahi. If Reuven is married to Sarah, which means that when he divorces Sarah, then Rivka becomes Achos Isha or Achos Grushaso. Hanafka mishum Achos Isha. So Memele, Rivka would be able to go live her best life because it's Achos Isha. She's the sister, or now she's the sister of Reuven's now divorced wife. Ilav Knuya, and if Reuven was not married to Sarah at all, well then Shaper Miyabim, well then he's doing Yibum with her, and they're married, and then he divorces her, and she can go live her best life. But if you would say that it's the opposite, that the Chereshes, that Rivka is either entirely married or entirely not married, Kitana Knuya Mishuyeres, and it's Sarah who is quasi-married, well then, if Sarah is quasi-married, Kiba al Chereshes amai no saying get. Vihutra, then how can he simply just give her a get and then she can go live her best life, right? Meaning if Reuven is quasi-married to Sarah, and then Shimon dies, and now there's a Zika with Rivka, and Rivka was either married to Shimon or not married to Shimon at all. So now in the event that she was married to Shimon, well, if that's the case, well then, so we said that he divorced. Right. So if she was definitely married to Shimon, well then the Zika between Reuven and Rivka is stronger than the Zika between Reuven and Sarah, and therefore he divorces Sarah. Right, so now I don't even know what I just said, but if Sarah was if Rivka was mamish married to Shimon, so then Reuven would have to do Yibum with Rivka because the Zika between Reuven and Rivka would be stronger than the marriage between Reuven and Sarah, which is only quasi. And the thing is that he's married to Sarah, which would make Rivka Achos Isha, which he's not allowed to do. And therefore, by Reuven doing Yibum with Rivka, which is puzzle, that wouldn't, free up her Zika, right? Meaning, so therefore, if Reuven is married to Sarah, and that's a quasi-marriage, certainly a quasi-marriage, and we say that in the event that Rivka was married to Shimon fully, so then Reuven would have a Zika with Rivka. The thing is that he's married to Sarah, so he can't actually do Yibum with Rivka, and he can't do Chalitza with Rivka either because she's a Chereshes. And we said in the Brisa that in the event that Reuven does nonetheless do Yibum with Rivka, then he could just give her a get and she can go live her best life. But the thing is, that would be a psula, right? He wouldn't be able to sleep with Rivka since Reuven's married to Sarah, her sister. So therefore, the bia with Rivka would be bia psula, and therefore, the bia with Rivka would be bia psula, and it wouldn't free up the zika. Why can she go and live her best life, right? How come he could simply do yibum with Rivka and then give her a get and she can go live her best life? Havila bia psula. It's bia psula since Reuven is married to Sarah quasi. Uvia psula lo patra, and bia psula isn't going to make her potter from having to do yibum in order to live her best life. So answer the Gemara, Ha'amani Reb Nechemyahi. So I say, well, you could say actually that the marriage of the Ketana is the quasi-marriage, and the marriage to the Chereshes is the Safa, is the maybe yes, maybe no marriage. And what does it mean then that if he does Yibum with Rivka, then he could give her a get and she can go live her best life? Reb Nechemya, the Amr bi Psula poteres mechalitza. You could say it's Reb Nechemya, whose opinion is that bia psula makes you potter from chalitza. So therefore, in the event that Rivka was actually married to Shimon, which means that there's a proper zika between Ruvain and Rivka, and that zika is stronger than the quasi-marriage between Ruvain and Sarah, so then he divorces Sarah, and then if in the event that he did yibum with Rivka, even though it's not allowed, it nonetheless would free up the zika, and she can go live her best life. But if that's the Reb Nechemya, ema seifa. But one second, if it's in fact of Nechemya and that bia psula frees up a zika, so then Misha Yanasu, what about the continuation of the Bryce? Misha Yanasu shtei yisomus ketana v'chereshes. If you have Ruvain was married to two Yisomis. They're not related. He's married to two Yisomis, Sarah and Rivka, not related. Sarah is a ketana, Rivka is a chereshes, vameis, and then Ruvain dies. Now, by Yavam ala ketana, if Shimon did yibum with Sarah the ketana, v'chazu v'ala chereshes, and then he did yibum with Rivka the chereshes, after he already did yibum with Sarah the ketana, or maybe his brother Levi did yibum with Rivka. Nesu shtei and Olav. So then both Sarah and Rivka are asuris on Ruvain. Ketzat takanosin. So what do? Right? So he did yibum, right? Shimon did yibum with both Sarah and with Rivka. So what does he do? Chereshes yotzes beget. So the Chereshes, he gives her a get. And then the Ketana, Sarah, wait until she gets older, and then she can do Chalitza. Okay, fine. So Yomar, right? So 1 second. So let's talk this out. So Ruvain was married to Sarah and to Rivka. Sarah is a Ketana, Rivka is a Chereshes. Ruvain dies. Shimon then first does Yibum with Sarah, and then does Yibum with Rivka. Now we want to first explain this and say that this makes sense if we understand it the first way that we explained, Rav, which is that the Chereshes is a quasi-marriage and the Ketana is a suffix, either yes marriage or no marriage. And it's like the rabbis who say that bia psula is not going to free up the zika. So in that case, I understand why we say that the Ketana, that if he does even with Sarah and then he does even with Rivka, then he divorces Rivka and she can go live her best life, and for Sarah the Ketana, he waits until she gets older and gives her a get. Because let's think it through. So he did Yibum with Sarah. Now, if Sarah was married to Reuven, well then this is Yibum, then this is proper Yibum, and then Rivka doesn't, and then which means that Rivka is Rivka really shouldn't have done anything with, but he already slept with her, and we say, okay, just give her a divorce, a bill of divorce, and she can go live her best life, even though, right, I mean, he already did Yibum with Sarah. Now, if Sarah was not married to Reuven, so then he didn't accomplish anything by sleeping with Sarah, and then when he slept with Rivka, he does Yibum with her, now they're married, and then by giving her the bill of divorce, she can go and live her best life. And if that's the case, then why do we say that you have to wait for Sarah till she gets older and then you give her and then you do chalitza when she gets older, right? Why not just say, look, if they weren't married, so then she's like a nachris, and who cares? And if she was married, then you did yibum with her. Well, because just in case, what if you did it the other way around? What if first Shimon did yibum with Rivka, and that's a quasi yibum, and we're saying, so if he did yibum first with Rivka, and that's a quasi marriage, a quasi yibum. So if that's the case, then if he does yibum with Sarah after that, now in the event that Sarah was married fully to Ruvain, well then there would be a zika between Shimon and Sarah. The thing is that he already did this quasi yibum with Rivka, which makes Shimon not allowed to do yibum with Sarah, because he already did yibum with Rivka the Tsar. And therefore, and even if he does sleep with Sarah, does do yibum with Sarah, it's bia psula, and bia psula doesn't let up the zika, and that is why when she gets older, he would still have to do chalitza. That's why when Sarah gets older and becomes an adult, you would still have to do chalitza. And therefore, I can understand what we're saying over here through the lens of the way that Rav explained it, that the chereshes is the quasi-marriage and the ketana is the either yes or no marriage. And I also understand it according to the rabbis who say that bia psula is not going to free up the zika. Right? So fine. So Yomer Bishlama chereshes knuya mishiyeres. So as I just explained, or at least hope I explained, that I understand if we said the chereshes is the quasi-marriage, ketana knuya ve'ena knuya, and the ketana is the suffix, is either married or not married, v'rabbanani, and it's the rabbis who say that bia psula does not free up the zika, mishum achi tamtenat shetagdil v'tachlotz. That is why we wait until and that is why we have to wait until Sarah becomes an adult, and then she does chalitza, because the dilma kadem uval chereshes bereisha, because just in case Shimon would first do yibum with Rivka, which would be a quasi yibum, which would make Shimon's when Shimon does yibum then with Sarah, that makes it a bia psula, since he had already done quasi yibum with Rivka, and therefore that wouldn't free up the zika, and that's why when Sarah gets older, he would have to do chalitza. V'havile bia diktana bia psula. The bia with Sarah would be bia psula, and she would have to do yibum. She'd have to do chalitza when she becomes an adult. Eli Amar to Reb Nechemia. So if you're going to say, however, the opposite, if you're going to say that the chereshes is the that the chereshes is the either full marriage or no marriage at all, and the ketana is the quasi marriage, and it's like Reb Nechemia, who says that bia psula is actually would break up the zika. Ha'omar bia psula patra, but Reb Nechemia says that bia psula is okay, and therefore, why would Sarah need to do chalitza when she gets older? Why can't Shimon just give her a get? Right? Because if Shimon slept with Sarah, and it's a quasi yibum, so then if doing yibum with Rivka is completely irrelevant, so then he's married to Sarah, and he can give her a get. And if we say that he's married to Rivka, right? He's fully married to. If we say that Reuven was fully married to Rivka, and therefore when Shimon sleeps with Rivka, that was a complete yibum. And with Sarah, since there was the zika with Rivka, that was a bia psula. You shouldn't have slept with Sarah, since it was only a quasi yibum. But who cares? Bia psula is patra anyways, and therefore it'll get rid of the zika. Why do you have to wait until she gets older and have to do chalitza later? Mimanav shach, the get would have been enough, right? Because if they were married, then he gave her a get, and if they if Reuven was married to Rivka, which would make that zika stronger, nonetheless the bia psula would end up breaking up the zika, and therefore she shouldn't have to do chalitza later anyways. So therefore Ela shmamina Rabbanan ishmamina. Rather, it is like Rav Sheshes was explaining, that it's the chereshes, that's the quasi-marriage, and the ktana is the suffix marriage, and that we say that bia psula does not break up a zika. Amar Rav Ashi Meresha Nami Shmamina, and Rav Ashi says that also from the first, even from the first part of the brisa, right, when we say that we had Ruvain and Shimon who were married to Sarah and Rivka, and they were sisters. Sarah was Reuven was married to Sarah, Shimon was married to Rivka, right? Sarah was a Ktana, Rivka was a Chereshes. So Meresh Nami Shmamina, the Rabbanani, that it's the rabbis, the Katani in Baal Chereshes, Nosin Lo Get Vihutra. Because it says Davka that if Ruvain slept with Rivka, the Chereshes, even though he's not supposed to, right? He divorced Sarah, then he slept with, then he did Yibum with Rivka, even though he's not supposed to, he could just give her a get, and then she can go live her best life. Velo Katani, but it doesn't also say, in Baal Ktana, Nosin Lo Get Vuhutra. And he doesn't say that if that if Ruvain died, it doesn't say that if Shimon slept with Saras, then he could just give her a get and then she's potter. From the fact that it doesn't say that, it must mean that that in the event that he had to do Yibum with Sarah, but she was psul because Shimon was already married to Rivka, and therefore, he wouldn't just be able to give her a get and then she goes free. So Memele, it also means that Bia Psula doesn't break up the Zika. So Mishuma lo iri chereshes de lo area. So we say no, that isn't a good proof, because chereshes de lo takanta, de leisla takanta de etera, katani takanta de isura, katana de isla takanta de etera, lo katani takanta de isura. That's not necessarily a proof from the fact that we left it out by the the Ktana, because you could say, look, by the chereshes, there's really no way for her to go free otherwise, right? Because as we said, right, he's not she's just kind of stuck. But in the event that he did do the wrong thing and slept with her anyway, so then he can just give her a get and she goes free. But by the Ktana, since there is a permitted way to deal with it, which is just wait until she gets older and then give her do chalitza, so then we don't offer the possibility to, sleep with her and then give her a get. But you could theoretically argue that, you could explain that it's like Reb Nechemia anyways. Okay, fine. Let's move on. So it says the Mishnah Mishaya Nosu the Shtei Yisomis. So if Reuven was married to two Yisomis Ketanis, two Midrabanan young Yisomis Umeis, and then Reuven dies of Yevamos Rishona, and then Shimon sleeps with the first one, and then he sleeps with the second one, Sheba, or his brother did Yibum with the second one. Lo Pasal Rishona doesn't make the first one Pasal. Can still stay with the first one. And also if you have two, if they were both deaf, not necessarily Ketanos. Ketana v'chereshes, if one was a Ketana, the other one was a Chereshes, Bayav mal Ketana, if Shimon does Yibum with the Ketana, v'chazov al Chereshes, and then he does Yibum with the Chereshes, or his brother slept with the Chereshes, Pasal Saktana, it makes the Ketana Pasal, as we said earlier, right, just in case out of Gzeira, just in case he sleeps with the Chereshes first, in which case he would kind of be stuck by the Ketana. But Yavam al Chereshes v'chazov al Ketana, if Shimon did Yibum with the Chereshes and then he did Yibum with the Ketana, or the brother did Yibum with the Ketana, Pasal Chereshes, it makes the Chereshes Pasal. Pikachas v'Chereshes, if he's married to a Pikachas and Chereshes, but Yavam al Pikachas, if Shimon does even with the pikachas, v'chazov al chereshes, and then he does even with the chereshes, or sheba achiv al chereshes, or his brother did even with the chereshes, lo pasal sa pikachas. It doesn't make the pikachas pasal. But yavam al chereshes, but if the yavam first does even with the chereshes, v'chazov al pikachas, and then he does even with the pikachas, or sheba achiv al pikachas, or if his brother did even with the pikachas pasal sa chereshes, it makes the chereshes psula. Gedola v'ktana, if one was a gedola, one was a ktana. But yavam al gedola v'chazov al ktana. If the Yavam did Yibum with the Gedol and then did Yibum with the Ketana, or his brother did Yibum with the Ketana, Lo Pasal Sa Gedola, doesn't make the Gedola Psula. By Yavam al Ketana v'chazov al Gedola, if the Yavam does Yibum with the Ketana and then he does Yibum with the Gedola, Sheba Achav al Gedola, his brother did Yibum with the Gedola, Pasal Sa Ketana, makes the Ketana Psula. Rabbi Lazar Omer says Rabbi Lazar Lamdan Katana Shetmayimbo, that in this case, if there's a Katana and a Gedola, so then we teach the Gedola to just do Meyun and then move on. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Shmuel Alacha Rabbi Lazar. Rav Yehuda says name Shmuel Alacha Rabbi Lazar, that we teach the Katana to do Meyun. B'chinam Lazar Alacha Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar also says that the halacha is like Rabbi Lazar. V'tzricha, we need both cases, right? We had said earlier by the two sisters, where right, Reuven's married to Sarah, Shimon's married to Rivka, Sarah's a Gedola, Rivka's a Katana. So Rabbi Eliezer had said over there that we teach the Katana to do Meyun, and Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel over there that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer, and he's saying over here that the halacha is like Rabbi Lazar. So we need both cases. The Itmar Beha Kamaisa. If we would only say in the first case, Ba'ach Kwam Shmuel, this is where Shmuel says halacha Rabbi Eliezer that we teach the child to do Meyun Mishum Delo Ki Mitzvahs Yibum, because he was right. Otherwise, you're not able to do Yibum. Ava Bahad Ikai Mitzvahs Yibum, but over here where there is the mitzvah of Yibum anyways, right? You already did Yibum with the Gedola. So then Ema Tavayu Lafko beget. So then just give them both a get. V'yashminam Beha. And if we say in this case Mishum the Gedola Ram Yerkame Aval Idach Lo Tzricha. That's because in this case there are both of them that you have the potential to do Yibum with. So therefore we say, look, just teach the Kitana to do Meyun, and then you could do Yibum with the Gedola. But in the other case, he's married to the Ketana, so therefore in that case we might say like, okay, just leave her alone and let her stay married. So fine. Friends, we're going to stop here because we just are, because this page is insane. I got to run. Peace out.